Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'll be your astrologer this week, and this is going to be the astro weather for the week of September 28th through October 5th, 2025. We're going to be talking about all the transits for the week ahead, but obviously major headlines this week is Mercury in the sign of Libra coming into a square with Jupiter in Cancer. Now, if you guys like my content, you want to see more, make sure you subscribe to the channel, click that bell button below so you're alerted as to when I have new videos. I'm here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday using tarot and astrology to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. Do me a favor and give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Consider sharing on your socials, and while you're there, follow me on X at BTVAstro. And make sure you guys leave me a comment below and let me know what big discussions are taking place this week. Now, if you guys want, join me on Friday. I'm going to be here live at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. That's 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. And we're going to be doing live astrology readings. So if you guys want to get your chart read, you have questions about specific time periods or synastry, I'd love to hang out with you on Friday. And consider joining my memberships. If you guys join level 4, you guys are going to be first in line, and you can get a reading from me once a month while supporting me as a full-time content creator. Now we are heading into October, so if you guys haven't seen the October horoscopes, check them out. It's really going to cover all the most important transits for the next month for the 12 rising signs. We got tarot predictions and all kinds of insights into what October has in store. And I hope you guys enjoy that. We're going to be putting out the tarot scopes also later in this next week, so those of you guys who are waiting for that, they'll be here soon. And this week, I feel like this week's a little bit calmer. Yes, we're going to see some intense communication stuff, but actually I think things are actually kind of starting to calm down a little bit. So this week in a nutshell is bringing a mix of expansive energy and a little bit of tension when it comes to communication. Really, it's going to be urging us to kind of balance big picture thinking with practical communication in relationships. I am expecting opportunities for growth, lots of social opportunities this week. And obviously new ideas, especially when it comes to how we communicate to those who are closest to us. Just watch for overcommitment or scattered focus. We can feel like we're trying to kind of do too many things at once. Cardinal energy is dominating this week, and it's really pushing us for action and initiation amongst some of the kind of change that is happening in the skies. So the themes this week are going to be obviously release, kind of dealing with some karmic turning points. We're refining things, especially revolving around service, health, as well as our partnerships. Now, the key transits that I'm going to be kind of covering throughout the next couple of days is going to start with the first quarter square. So we're going to see the moon going through Capricorn, initiating what is going to be a square to the sun in Libra. We'll see that on the 29th, and that's going to be happening in the PM hours, depending on where you are. Basically, this is kind of the turning point. We're starting to see a check since this most recent solar eclipse that we saw in the sign of Virgo. So this is a building phase or crisis in kind of action. We'll see some tension that'll be building. And obviously, Capricorn is all about ambition and what we are doing, who we are working with to be able to achieve our goals. So we're going to have to take some practical steps and probably set some boundaries amongst some of the kind of more emotional squares that are happening. Now, if you happen to be a cardinal sign, whether you're a sun, moon, or rising, I would say anything between about 20 and 27 degrees, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, you guys are going to be feeling the effects this week with some of the squares and also the transit moon. Now, the big one is going to be Mercury in Libra square Jupiter in Cancer, and this transit is definitely going to be amplifying communication. Lots of ideas, but also we see some friction that can kind of come up during squares, and it's all going to be about relational harmony and emotional expansion. So yes, this can lead to some exaggerated debates. We can feel a little bit overly optimistic with our plans. We can be feeling growing pains revolving around the changes that we need to make in relationships, how that's impacting us emotionally or on the home front. Now, Venus will be making her conjunction to the South Node this week. So the past is knocking for some people. You might be hearing or dealing with clearing up or shoring up old relationship, haunts. There can be people from the past coming back, and we can also be kind of reflecting on what's not working in relationships. And it's actually at the same degree. So it's going to be at 18 degrees, the same degree where we saw the sun conjunct a couple of weeks ago, the same degree where Mars was conjunct a couple of weeks ago. So we're still kind of dealing with some themes over the last couple of months of letting go, releasing what's not working and what's breaking down. Now, the South Node is about kind of past karma. So whether that's in this lifetime or, things that we've done in the past. And this karmic alignment is really emphasizing releasing old patterns in relationships, as well as self-worth, service, and obviously inviting purification and closure in areas of perfectionism, as well as undervalued efforts. So definitely take a look at what's going on with the Virgo area of your chart. This is the last planet to hit the South Node, and then we're kind of in the clear. So let's talk all things about like the primary transit of the week, that Mercury in Libra square Jupiter in Cancer. If you happen to be a Gemini or a Virgo or a Sag rising, this is going to be impacting you guys because either Mercury or Jupiter, your chart rulers, are involved in this square. But honestly, I think everybody's going to get a little taste of this action. The South Node is connected to Mercury, and especially those of you guys who happen to have anything in the cardinal signs, like I said, about 20 to 26 degrees, you're feeling the heat. So Cancer and Libra, you guys in particular, you guys are kind of main characters in this transit. Now, we are going to find that, this square is activating tension, okay? And the cardinal signs are dynamic. They're about initiating energies, new ideas, new projects, new plans. And it's really kind of bringing up, some kind of expansion when it comes to communication, our beliefs, or our emotional security. Now, something to think about is that Jupiter is in a lunar sign. So it is a sign that deals with our emotions, our home, our family, even the past. So there can be a lot of the past kind of coming up in relationships or rehashing things that have kind of gone on in family dynamics in the past. And you'll have to stay tuned to the end of the video to see where this is kind of impacting each and every one of the 12 signs. I will cover that for you guys. This transit will be taking place on October the 1st, 2025. That's when the exact square is going to be happening at 22 degrees. But the influence is really building, pretty much now all the way into early October. And like I said, it's going to peak around that like 22, 23 degrees. Now, Mercury is the planet that deals with communication. So anything from gadgets to, what we're writing, what we're texting, or emails. And it's also kind of governing over intellect, short trips, siblings, learning, and our daily routines. So as the ruler of both Gemini and Virgo, where we have the South Node and we also have Uranus in Gemini, it's going to be bringing up themes revolving around how we process information and how we express ideas with precision and learn to be a little bit more adaptable and flexible. Now, Jupiter, on the other hand, is a planet that deals with expansion. It is about growth and philosophy, higher learning, higher education, travel, anything to do with like luck as well as optimism. So we can be a little overly optimistic with some of these squares. And with Jupiter ruling over Sagittarius as well as Pisces, it's going to be amplifying abundance as well as kind of faith, maybe broader perspectives, and bringing opportunities or potentially excess. So when we see a square in astrology, this is like a hard 90-degree angle, and it creates tension, and it's kind of showing where something has to kind of be dealt with and situations kind of arise. And we see friction, and obviously some of these dynamic challenges that come up are going to force growth, and it's going to be about growing pains, I think, in the way that we communicate and connect with other people. Now, it can represent internal or external conflicts that demand action as well as resolution and integration. Oftentimes squares, they lead to breakthroughs after initial stress or obstacles. So there is like a method to the madness. Cardinal squares in particular, anything that involves Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, symbolize drive. These are the seasons, or the markers of the seasons, these signs. And it really deals with like leadership, anything connecting to also starting new cycles. Now, they create this energy that is urgent, and there is some kind of action-oriented tension that will come up this week, likely pushing for change, but also making us more ambitious and willing to kind of confront any foundational areas that are connected to the home, right? Because we're going to see it squaring Jupiter in, a lunar sign. So some of us will see challenges where home is affecting relationships or career is affecting home, and it's kind of like pinging all over the chart. Unlike fixed signs, which can be kind of stubborn, or mutable signs, which are more adaptable, squares in the cardinal signs are about kind of bold initiation and some kind of rapid evolution. So things are going to happen very quickly throughout the week. Now, this square will be taking place at 22 degrees. And if you guys follow degree theory, 22 degrees is an interesting degree. This is a degree that is connected to and associated with the sign of Capricorn. So it's going to symbolize things like structure, ambition, and mastery, but it's also about themes connecting to the government, our work, our careers, our legacy. And this is the degree that is known as the kill or be killed degree. If you guys haven't seen me talk about this on X, I've been bringing that down quite a bit recently. And really what this indicates is that there is going to be potential for destruction or transformation, or there could be like high stakes endings or beginnings that are coming up this week. Now, it can manifest as intense challenges, obviously, and this can lead to achievement or loss, depending on how you guys look at it. And often this is going to be taking place in areas that are going to deal with power, legacy, as well as survival. So think of it as like having a bit of tenacity in the face of, adversity that might be kind of coming up throughout this week. Now, the Sabian symbols are interesting, both for Cancer as well as Libra. The Sabian symbol for 23 degrees of Cancer is the meeting of a literary society. So this particular symbol is kind of connected to like an intellectual exchange or debate. It can also represent critical analysis and communal refinement of ideas. So when we look at it in this sense, in terms of like the Mercury square, it's really encouraging gathering with like-minded people to discuss emotional or philosophical matters. And it's really about fostering growth. And it can be through, constructive criticism. It can also mean that there is some kind of social exchange or shared insight. And it's a wonderful Sabian symbol for group therapy, to process family or home themes. It can also be about having, family kind of meetings or, relationship therapy, anything that's going to be about receiving support and kind of getting perspective from other people. So that's what Mercury in Libra is doing, is trying to get us to kind of work together. Now, the Sabian symbol for 23 degrees of Libra, where we are going to be seeing Mercury at, okay, so sorry guys, we've got Jupiter in Cancer, so that's the 23 degrees. We've got Mercury that's going to be in Libra at 22, almost 23 degrees. And this is a rooster crowing at dawn, okay? So this represents a joyous and confident announcement of new beginnings, obviously an awakening, right? We wake up when the rooster crows. And this can be about being kind of cocky or overly enthusiastic, maybe even confident, and making some announcement of new beginnings. And it can also be about a creative response to life. So when we think about, Mercury being at this degree, squaring Jupiter at the same degree, it's really inviting bold communication. And it's going to be about communication in relationships and kind of heralding in a way like a fresh new perspective or resolution in relationships. So we're going to be using it to voice our truths or concerns in partnerships. And it's also about inspiring optimism and like a sense of renewal among some of the tension that's going to come from the square. So, Jupiter wants this growth, emotional growth, home and family growth. So we're going to see people who are going to be talking about where they're living, how they're running their household, what's going on with their family, what they are getting ready to expand. So whether that's like families or there's going to be relocations. And obviously we're kind of dealing with culture when we're dealing with Cancer and we're dealing with the past. So there can be a lot of busy planning that can kind of go on this week, revolving around how we're communicating with our relatives, planning things for the end of the year, trying to kind of please everybody and kind of diplomatically work with partnerships and relationships of all kinds to just navigate some of these growing pains that are going to be happening. Now, Mercury is tied to the South Node. Mercury is also tied to Venus, which is in Virgo. And what we're going to see here with, the Venus South Node conjunction this week, mutual reception between Mercury and also Venus, is it's bringing up a lot of these South Node themes. So we're going to see that, with Mercury's rulership in connection to the Virgo South Node, this is linking the transit to karmic release and a tendency to be a little too overly analytical. Maybe we're too much of a perfectionist. And it's also about really addressing service-oriented patterns and where we are depleting ourselves and giving too much, or we have too many irons on the fire, or there's too many, kind of plans on the agenda. So it will likely highlight letting go of being kind of nitpicky over the details or over communication. It can also show us where we have some like health-related obsessions that are peaking up this week, really urging us to release that, let it go, and really focus on this evolution towards the North Node in Pisces, which is much more intuitive and kind of going with the flow. Now, like I said, there's mutual reception that's kind of happening throughout this week between Venus and Mercury. And even though they're not making a traditional aspect to each other, we've got, Mercury in a Venusian sign. We've got Venus in a mercurial sign. So they're kind of saying the same thing. And it may help us kind of navigate some of these transits a little bit better. And I've kind of interpreted this as a lot of, what are we doing that is getting in the way of having better relationship harmony? Are we, kind of scheduling our days in a way where we're not making time for, partners or family or friends? Is there a need maybe to be a little bit more in tune with what other people need? And we're kind of willing to just kind of gloss over some of the details, even if things don't go according to plan. Maybe we're finally addressing some of the issues that have been kind of coming up in relationships. So this mutual reception, I think, is beneficial because, we've got Venus in a sign and also an aspect with the South Node where she's not going to be pleased, but maybe we're willing to let some of these kind of minor details kind of go for the sake of, diplomacy and maintaining harmony. So what this will do is it's going to kind of have like a similar exchange, and it'll soften the square's tension, and it'll enhance the ability to kind of meet people in the middle, to negotiate. It'll bring more balance in relationships. Aesthetic refinement is another thing that we'll see, and balanced critique. So it's really great for those of you guys who need to negotiate something this week. It's also great for love or work amongst some of the more kind of expansive communication that's kind of taking place, right? So we're willing to kind of overlook some of the hiccups, be more focused on the bigger picture and how we can work together. To navigate this transit, I would say number one is don't count your chickens before they hatch, right? That's number one, because whenever we're dealing with Jupiter squares, we get super excited about what new things are happening or coming or growing. I would also say, ground out some of these big ideas with facts. We want to avoid maybe over-compromising, or we want to avoid potentially exaggerating situations. We're going to see a lot of big news and things that might get kind of blown out of proportion this week. It can be helpful to journal and clarify your thoughts or meditate on emotional security versus relational fairness. Ask yourself, what relationships are bringing to the table? Are you staying for the wrong reasons? Could you be a team player? And also consider just really seeking balanced dialogue all week when possible. I would also say use affirmations for optimism, but do it without illusions, and find ways to kind of incorporate rituals that are going to be about balance. Particularly Mercury and Libra can be, stretching. It can be yoga. It can be Pilates. Any kind of journaling or meditation exercises, breathwork exercises can be really good as well, because we're going to feel, I think, a little mentally frazzled. And, Libra is an air sign, so it's a little bit more grounded and in many ways, I think, rational compared to Jupiter and Cancer, where our emotions can kind of get the best of us. Try to focus also on, not overloading your schedule, not taking on too much, not over-promising because we might under-deliver, and try to channel this energy productively. As for what you can expect, I would say there can be positive, expansive communications, meetings, kind of news that's coming up. We will likely see a lot of philosophical debates and also a lot of traveling. We're going to see a lot of people are going to be traveling, but there can be the potential for misunderstandings and having a little bit of scattered focus, and definitely emotional reactions, especially when we're seeing the moon making squares to some of these points. Now, I do think that the opportunities for growth and ideas and relationships are going to be tempered by some of the challenges that are going to come up in balancing the details and really focusing on the bigger picture and where we're trying to go together. So think that they're, kind of think like heated discussions that can kind of lead to breakthroughs that we can see in home, family, and relational dynamics. On a personal level, I expect that there could be revelations happening in communication styles or your beliefs that are tied to home and family, obviously Cancer, or relationships, and that's the Libra aspect. Many of us might revisit past ideas or relationships for closure, and this could be, I think, leading to wiser decisions, and it's positive for learning or networking. Just watch out for burnout and, like I said, having a loaded schedule and like too many commitments. Now, for global predictions, this could definitely spark debates in diplomacy, legal matters, education. I do think we're going to see some exaggerated media narratives, potentially some travel disruptions, especially anything that deals with like visas, passports, documentation, identification. That could be something else that we can kind of hear about. And we might hear a lot more about humanitarian efforts or new family policies. And we might see some tension in international kind of relationships. But I'm optimistic that there could be some breakthroughs as well People are going to be a little bit more open to, differences of perspective when it comes to philosophy or culture amongst some of the kind of tension with this particular square. So with that being said, let's get into the week ahead. Let's take a look, and we're going to go day by day. If you guys are looking for a date for the transits, just click the link below. You guys can go into the description and you can see each day with the transits, or consider heading over to my website and checking out my personal astrology calendars that I do that goes right into your Google or Apple calendars. That's going to talk about the transits and how it's impacting your natal chart. You guys can find that also in the links at beyondtheveiltarot.com. All right, so we're going to start with Sunday, September the 28th. So happy Sunday to my Sunday crew. How are you guys doing? What are you drinking? I'm always interested. Everybody's telling me what they're drinking and eating, so let me know. And I hope you guys are having a great Sunday. So if you guys are taking me along with you on a road trip, or you're running errands, or you're cleaning the house, or maybe you're just hanging out in bed, thank you for being a part of my Sunday crew. We wake up this morning with the moon in the sign of Sagittarius. So obviously with the Sagittarius moon, we're looking at Jupiter because Jupiter is connected to Sag. Well, it's fiery, it's optimistic, it's all about travel, education, learning, and it is making an inconjunct or a quincunx to Jupiter. So we're going to be feeling, on one hand, some of us want to get out, we want to explore today, and some of us are a little unsure and kind of wanting to kind of stay home and get cozy. And there could be this feeling of getting kind of pulled in both ways. Obviously, the moon going through Sagittarius very early this morning before this video came out, the last couple hours has been in a square to the north and south node. So that can also represent some kind of karmic turning points that are kind of happening this morning, things that we're learning, stuff that we're believing in, anything revolving around travel and kind of the higher mind is going to kind of come up today. So we can kind of feel like there's like some stuff that's kind of shifting. And with that square, we're also going to see that the, themes of Sagittarius are going to be coming up. South Node in Virgo is about getting out of our old outdated routines. North Node in Pisces is about, learning more about spirituality, going with the flow, healing, artistic stuff. So some of you guys might be feeling inclined to kind of go, it's actually time for me to start a course, or it's time for me to, go back and finish a certain, program, or it's time for me to kind of plan a vacation. And I would say, just pay attention to what you're open to kind of learning about today. Certainly with the moon early in the morning, it's still in a sextile to Mercury, so there's still some good communication and kind of planning that can go on in relationships. And then as we get into later in the evening, the moon is going to come into, the moon is going to come into a trine with Chiron. Okay, which is great for emotional healing. So if you guys are wanting to learn a new healing modality, or if you're wanting to, plan a trip somewhere that's going to be like, an adventure, but also something that's connected to spirituality, or something that's connected to working with a teacher or a mentor, that can come up. And then the last aspect we're going to see in the evening tonight will be a moon square Saturn. So it does seem to kind of get a little emotionally stifled as we're getting into the later hours on Sunday, the 28th. So in a nutshell, on Sunday, basically watch for early this morning where the moon squares the north and the south node. I think that's probably going to be one of the bigger transits today. Adventurous yet karmic, and there is like this push and pull between destiny and release. And I think we're going to feel a little bit more optimistic today. We might be feeling that optimism is leading us to focusing on healing wounds as the moon is trining Chiron in Aries. But boundaries will be feeling a little tested tonight, and we can feel that there's some emotional blockages, or maybe there's some delays if we're traveling this evening. And it's ideal for philosophical reflection, but we can be a little prone to escapism with the moon squaring Saturn and also the moon square the north node in Pisces. I would say to get through Sunday today, embrace learning or outdoor activities. That Sagittarius moon really wants to be active and bold. Ground your emotions if you can in the morning. Take some time to just kind of take a step back and maybe do some journaling or some meditation, and avoid overcommitting to plans as you get into later on Sunday. Focus on healing old patterns, and this can also be, things that we're releasing or things that we're letting go. It can be very much about forgiveness. This evening, we're going to see the moon come into the late degrees of Sagittarius kind of overnight and it will be squaring that solar eclipse that we just had in Virgo. So it won't be until Monday that you guys are actually going to see the first quarter square, but still we're going to be feeling the effects of that tonight. All right, so that's going to take us to the 29th, which will be Monday. And Monday morning, when we wake up, the moon is in Capricorn. So boy, oh boy, back to work, back to the grind. Obviously, when the moon goes through Capricorn, it's going through a bit of like a debilitated state. So emotional labor is what I kind of connect to the moon in Capricorn. When the moon goes through here very early in the morning, we're looking at what's happening with Saturn. And so Saturn is in the last stretch for the next couple of months in Pisces, wrapping up places and things and spaces that, we kind of feel like we've been up against some invisible kind of barriers or walls. It is more quiet, it's more reflective. It's also about kind of dissolving things. So there could be things that we're kind of focusing on breaking down or like releasing. We're also going to see that when the moon comes into Capricorn early in the morning, it comes into a square with Neptune in Aries. So there's a lot of like, have to go to work, have to get things done, have to be busy. And that square to Neptune, in Aries retrograde could mean we're feeling exhausted. We're not feeling checked in. We're not feeling enthusiastic about what responsibilities we have to take. And maybe we're feeling a little bit tired or under the weather, kind of bogged down. We're also going to see the moon come into a square with the sun. So this will be the first quarter square. And as the moon goes through Capricorn for the next couple of days, you are going to see there is going to be a lot of work to do, okay? So let's kind of look at what the rest of Monday looks like. It looks like we're going to have, the positive is the moon will sextile Mars. And Mars is in Scorpio, and that's going to happen in the afternoon hours. And that's going to help us feel motivated to kind of, get down to business, organize stuff, do research, do some deep digging, clearing out, purging, transforming something. So that's one way out. And then as the day continues, we will then see the moon keep moving through Capricorn into the evening. And then it's going to square the sun, and that'll be in the evening hours on Monday the 29th. So moon square sun is the official first quarter square since the solar eclipse that we had in Virgo. So think back to what happened around the 21st. Now that we're a week in, okay, and that solar eclipse was in Virgo. So it was about our habits, our schedule, our work, our routines. And maybe we were like, I'm going to eat better. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to organize my office space. I'm going to walk the dogs, whatever it was that you said you were going to do. Now this square comes in and it says, okay, what are you going to do about it? Are you actually taking the action that's necessary based off of those intentions? So the day to me on Monday feels ambitious with the moon in Capricorn, even though there is a sense of not entirely being too sure how we're going to have or find the energy to get everything done. This is about getting structured and really kind of building towards our goals and having more of like a passionate drive. And I think the sextile to Scorpio is going to help that Mars in Scorpio. Just watch, because early in the morning with the Capricorn moon square Neptune in Aries, there could be some illusions. And then as we get into the day, in the evening, when the sun and the moon square at 7, we could see some major ego clashes that could be kind of coming up, particularly in relationships. Now, the tension will be mounting in the PM hours, and it's really urging us to take practical action amid some of the more kind of relational friction that's brewing. And 7s always deal with our relationship to someone or something. So it could literally be where we're working late and it brings up some tension in a relationship. Or perhaps it means that we're having some challenges, working with people or kind of dealing with clients or going in back and forth. And, it's going to take a lot of, like I said, emotional labor to work through some of the relational stuff that's kind of brewing. So to get through Monday, I would say number one, make sure you're caffeinated, have your coffee, and you're ready to go and you're ready to tackle the day. And know that some of the energy, I think, in that building momentum to kind of take care of business will happen, but you're going to see the evening is when we're kind of get checked by other people. So tackle work and responsibilities head on Monday. Use Mars's energy, I think, to kind of be laser focused on creating change. And then watch around the PM hours around dinner time, just breathe through any conflicts that might be coming up. Some of you guys might feel like you have to set boundaries and really prioritize your self-care. So, do something that is going to be reflective and grounding. Remember, Saturn is in Pisces, so you might have to go to bed early. You might have to take a bath or a shower. You might need to do some meditation, some prayer. Maybe you just need to kind of go for a walk by yourself and ground your energy. Just take a breath and know that you're going to need your wits about you, because the next 2 days are going to be rather intense. Now, we're going to take this to Tuesday, and this will be the 30th. And when we wake up in the morning, the moon is still in Capricorn, and now it's starting to come into a trine with Venus. Okay, so this is beneficial. I think that with the moon trine Venus, obviously Virgo is more about our schedule. It's about our health. It's going to be about our coworkers or office space. So, we do feel like with the moon and Venus, we can actually get something done. It may not be something we want to do, but sprucing up our office space, or maybe checking in with our coworkers, prioritizing health and routine will actually give us a little bit of stability on this day. Now, we're also going to see with the moon trine the South Node, we're going to see a lot of changes happening either with our coworkers at work. There can also be some changes revolving around, people's jobs, schedule changes, job changes, or kind of dealing with old unresolved issues at work can definitely come up. And as we get into later in the afternoon, this is when things start to get a little hairy. And that's because we're going to start to see Mercury and the moon square. And so even though I told you guys that you're going to feel the Mercury-Jupiter exact on October 1st, I don't think you have to wait that long. I think it's actually going to be kicking off on Tuesday night. So if you look at this, we've got the moon at like 19, 20, 21, 22. We've got Mercury at 21. We've got Jupiter at 22. We've got Chiron at 25. So Tuesday evening, when the moon starts coming into a square with Mercury, there is going to be tension yet again, which is mirroring what we saw with the first quarter square. What work we're doing, or where we're a little bit too cold or maybe serious or like reserved, or we're not showing up in some way for our relationships. Well, here's that Capricorn, Libra square again. Moon in Capricorn wants to just kind of bulldoze through emotions and feelings and just do the logical, practical things, versus Mercury in Libra that's going to be like, hey, are you coming home for dinner? Hey, do you want to get together? Hey, I'm just following up. I didn't hear back from you. And then that moon is going to oppose Jupiter, which is going to make things feel bigger. And obviously Jupiter is in a lunar sign. So we're going to see big conversations revolving around Cancer, Capricorn topics, parenting, home and family dynamics, in a global way, what leaders are saying regarding immigration, travel, anything kind of connected to laws revolving around, citizenship, laws revolving around, international travel, I think, and emotions can get very big when the moon is coming into an opposition with Jupiter. So that'll be happening around the late PM hours. And then the finale is going to be the moon overnight, then coming into a square with Chiron. So this is pretty much going to be the most intense, I would say, around 8 p.m. Central Time. I'm here in Texas. And it's going to go into the late night hours. So 21, 22, and then it'll square Chiron overnight. So this is a grand cardinal cross, basically. And this is why I said anybody who's got 20 to 26 degrees this week, you're going to be feeling the heat. Now, thankfully, the moon square Chiron is going to be playing out more so overnight, so we're not going to be feeling that. But I could see some people who are just kind of like agitated and irritated that they're being pulled away from certain relationship dynamics because they've got something to work on, or there is going to be this more assertive energy that's going to come through the Capricorn moon that's like, this is what I have to do, or I have to take care of business. Some people may be finding that the pressure is mounting and it's building because of Saturn's retrograde connection, and it's like, well, these are things we have failed to discuss, work on, fix, initiate. So quite intense on Tuesday night. So I think that the key transit will be those squares, most intense in the evening. To me, Tuesday feels very karmic. It's also very reflective, and it's really supporting some kind of release because the moon is going to be in a trine with the South Node and a sextile with the North Node as we get, kind of on with the day. There will be communication tensions. This is not a good day to be signing contracts, trying to negotiate things, trying to force things. And we will see that evening intensity amplify emotional wounds as the Capricorn moon is coming into a square with Chiron overnight. So I think that, some of us are going to feel like, okay, there's a lot of intensity. Do we tend with a wound, or do we kind of talk through it and work through whatever issues are happening? And some of us might kind of feel like we're at a bit of a crossroads. To navigate Tuesday, I would say this is the day to release outdated habits. So things like decluttering, cleaning out, organizing, straightening up our office, really committing to eating well and taking care of our bodies. And then as we get into the afternoon, just be really mindful of your words. I think in the evening time, because there is so much stress and tension, some of us might feel like, you know what, we need to take a little bit of space. Yet again, this is when you're going to go for your walk or do your meditation, and try to avoid arguments, because I feel like that is definitely something that is on the horizon with this square. And it looks like it's going to be squaring around 21, 22. So I'm expecting there's going to be maybe a lot of people who are just, trying to kind of play catch up on work. If they've been traveling, there's a lot of people who are going to be doing an abundance of traveling or meetings or, kind of conversations with people. I also think that we need to watch for the emotional reactions that can kind of be coming through with these particular transits on Tuesday night. So that is going to be Tuesday. So this will then take us into Wednesday, October the 1st. And on Wednesday morning, the moon is in the last kind of bits of Capricorn. And we're going to see the moon sextile Saturn, which is nice. So because we've been maybe a little bit more reflective, or we've been maybe accepting some things that we have to let go or dissolve, or maybe we're really tuned into our vision or our meditations, we're able to feel like we can get work done. I've actually kind of liked Saturn. Like when the moon is in either Taurus or Capricorn and it's sextiling Saturn, I have found that, like, if I have my headphones on or I'm listening to music and I'm just like zoned out, like getting work done, that Saturn retrograde can mean that if we are really kind of dissolving or removing any stressors, or maybe we're taking time to kind of bring in, breaks or naps or meditation or music, something that can kind of help us be more productive, it can be really, really beneficial in kind of navigating, I think, the Capricorn moon. So try adding a little bit of that to your routine. Now, we will also see the moon switch signs. So it's going to go into Aquarius, and it's going to be a very different vibe shift. And when that happens, that'll be taking place in the afternoon. So we'll see the moon continue to go through Capricorn, and then it looks like in the afternoon, kind of mid-afternoon, moon ingresses into Aquarius. Now, when this happens, it's a completely different energy. We're moving out of all of these kind of like crossroads where we've had all these cardinal squares where everything's kind of happening at once. And now we go into an air element that is fixed, obviously ruled by Uranus. So watch what happens on Wednesday afternoon, because not only does the moon change signs, but it's going to conjunct Pluto in Aquarius, where there is this emotional purging. There is going to be some kind of, shocks or surprises collectively. We might be focusing on clearing out or detoxing or cleansing things. And there can be some tension amongst some of our social connections, changes with friends, changes with goals. Now, not only does the moon hit Pluto, but it also trines Uranus, which is the ruler. So there's going to be new information surfacing, new ideas, new ways of communicating. These are very social, right? Sun in Libra, moon, Pluto in Aquarius, Uranus in Gemini. So even though a lot of the heavy hitters are involved here, it's a much easier, I think, energy to kind of navigate, and it's going to help us kind of connect with other people and like not have some of the tension that we have had earlier, this week. Now, we will also see the moon sextile Neptune in Aries. And I always pay attention when the moon goes through, Aquarius, Aries, or Gemini, because it's lighting up where these planets are going to be in 2026. And air and fire, they fuel each other. It's masculine, it's quick. We see things that can shift very quickly. And it's building off of some of the tension that we had with some of the cardinal squares, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So I would be watching this day, because I'm all about making lemonade. And you guys are either going to fall into the trap of Mercury square Jupiter, where, okay, there is some big dynamic news. Hey, did you hear about, what's going on? And it's going to be about corporate businesses. It's going to be about leaders. It's going to be about government related things. And everybody's going to have an opinion with, Mercury square Jupiter. Jupiter is going to talk a lot about, well, this is how we've always done things, and this is what's happened in the past. Or it's going to be about bringing up information and documents and news relating to the past. And the moon coming into conjunction with Pluto is really reverberating off of this Jupiter-Mercury square. So I think it's unearthing things. It's bringing stuff up to the surface that we haven't seen, that we haven't known. Now, if you don't want to get into the heated philosophical or cultural or religious exchanges with people, which can definitely happen with this, even if you're trying to do it diplomatically, some people are going to react very strongly. And like Jupiter in Cancer is very patriotic. So you're going to hear a lot of people who are going to be talking about, well, my culture, my country, this and that. Even if people are trying to debate in a civil way, I think people are going to get really intense. The way out of this is you follow the moon trining Uranus, where we can have, change in transformative interactions with people, purging, some of this kind of collective toxicity. And it will trine Uranus in Gemini, where we can kind of have a shift or a change of mind or hear a perspective or some kind of information that we didn't know. And then the moon is going to continue moving through Aquarius, and it's going to trine the sun in Libra. So there's a grand air trine. We want to be open to information. We want to hear dialogue and exchange, even if we don't agree, even if we don't believe it, even if there are things that can seem over the top. We want to have these discussions because it's going to be able to help us learn how to be able to exchange and communicate again, okay? If you aren't doing that, then you're going to get, kind of emotionally or mentally overstimulated by all of the stuff that's kind of hitting at one time with that Mercury-Jupiter square. Mercury is connected to, obviously, the South Node, and Venus is there. So we could be having some difficulties trying to squeeze everything into our schedule to appease our partners, our friends, our family, and we can just be over inundated with so many things that are kind of happening on the home front. And then obviously we've got, Jupiter that is kind of connected to the moon, and you'll see kind of, going into Thursday, then the moon is going to start trining Mercury. So it's going to start going, okay, we can work together. We can kind of do this as a team. So definitely the Mercury-Jupiter square is going to be felt the most on the first, but I think you guys are feeling it like 2 days prior. Now, what we will also see is that as the moon goes through Aquarius, it's going to come into a square with Mars. So it does get a little testy in the late PM hours. So if you're a night owl, the moon will come into a square with Mars very late, almost going into early morning on the 2nd. And yeah, that's going to happen overnight. And that's pretty much it in terms of what's going to be happening on the 1st. So my advice for you guys, I think, is just watch the lunar shift. The morning with the moon in Capricorn is going to start off very disciplined, and then it's going to shift into this like Aquarius energy where it's bold, it's innovative, it's intense with the conjunction of Pluto. It's about transformative insights and creative sparks. And then as we get into the late night evening, as the moon starts scoring Mars, we can see that there can actually be some conflicts and some tests of power dynamics. But overall, for the most part, I think that the first is actually, it's pretty expansive. It seems a little erratic to me. There could be big ideas that are clashing with emotions and, how we have always kind of done things in the past. So as we get into the second, let's see. So tips to navigate the first. Focus on structure in the morning. Embrace change because it's going to happen with the lunar conjunction to Pluto. Avoid power struggles at night and try to channel this energy into group discussions or learning something new or planning something social, which would then be happening either on Thursday or on Friday, okay? So Thursday the 2nd, when we wake up in the morning, moon is still in Aquarius, and this is arguably the better day all week. So Thursday is when things kind of chill out a little bit. That Aquarius moon is going to trine the sun. It has now come out of a square with Mars, and it's still in a loose trine to Uranus and Gemini. So if you're planning meetings, if you're planning social events, if you're wanting to confirm, reservations, if you're wanting to, make plans with friends, doing it Thursday morning is a good time to do it, whether you're having those connections or you're actually making the plans. Because that grand air trine is all about connecting and kind of supporting and kind of being with other people. And throughout the day, you will continue to see the moon go through Aquarius, and it's kind of heading for a trine with Mercury, which is going to be really helpful when we start seeing Mercury opposing Chiron. Anyway, nothing's really happening with Uranus. Nothing's really aspecting it right now. So it's just kind of chilling. And that moon in Aquarius all day is kind of detached, vibey, focusing on connecting with other people. And then as we get into the evening hours, the moon is starting to build towards a trine with Mercury. So I do think that Thursday into Friday is very social. I would say on Thursday, watch for the harmony that can kind of be taking place after what's gone on earlier in the week. This airy energy is really fostering connections and finding balance with both Mercury and the Sun in Libra. And it's very innovative. It supports teamwork or anything that's kind of, working together or planning together or anything that requires some kind of bold vision for the future. And it feels very light and progressive compared to earlier week's tension. So on Thursday, I would say this is an excellent day for networking or collaborations. Use the air trine to negotiate with people, plan parties, socialize, and connect. Focus on future goals, and this would be a good day for like group activities to kind of harness the positive flow. Maybe you want to do some vision boarding, or you want to be focusing on, future goals of some kind. And then the moon will continue through Aquarius into the 4th, and when we wake up on the 4th, it is now starting to come into a trine with Mercury. So even on Friday morning, there is good harmonizing communication connection in the skies. As the moon is going through the sign, it's also going to sextile Chiron and Aries. So this is great for group healing work or, being able to kind of work through personal issues if you're going to like group therapy or if you're wanting to vent to a friend. You're also going to see that Mercury is going to start coming into a trine with Mercury. Now, the moon is going to come into a trine with Mercury. This is very important because not only did we see Mercury square Jupiter, but now we're going to see Mercury oppose Chiron. What's an example I can use of this? I really feel like it's people who are spreading themselves too thin, running around, taking on too much, doing too much for other people. So if you're somebody, just as an example, I would use this from like an Aries rising perspective. If you're somebody who's like, my partner's telling me they're going to, help me with this, they're going to help me with that. We have to, take care of a parent. We have to, pack up the garage. We have to, get ready for a trip. And there could be this sense of kind of feeling like, somebody is over-promising something to you. And then you start to kind of feel the effects of, having to tackle it or handle it or deal with it on your own. So if you don't want to get in the trap of Mercury opposed Chiron, where we could feel hurt or wounded, you have to speak up. You have to say something. You have to ask for help. You have to not feel like you're burdening people because, you're needing some assistance or some help too. Asking for help, I think, is a big part of, planets going through Libra. And it can be a therapist. It could be getting a reading. It could mean you're working with a business partner. It could mean you're working with, a spouse to kind of work through some of this stuff. And Mercury will sextile Chiron and it will trine the moon. The moon will sextile Chiron and the moon will trine Mercury. So that's how we kind of get out of the opposition. So on Friday, I would say with all of these aspects taking place, Mercury in opposition to Chiron is going to be bringing up some potential kind of hurt feelings or difficult communication. Now, if we communicate and we work together as a team with that moon in Aquarius, we can work through some of the issues. We could find that there could be, more mental ease because we just let somebody know what we're going through and we're getting some support. Yes, there will be some emotional adjustments, but I think oppositions between Mercury and Chiron are really highlighting some of the vulnerabilities that we're kind of dealing with on Friday. As we get into the evening, things kind of shift a little bit because then we're going to see the moon go into Pisces. So you're going to have like some of the best communication-based things that are going to be happening pretty much late morning into early afternoon. Looks like right around 2 o'clock Central Time, PM. The moon's going to trine Mercury right when Mercury is opposing Chiron. So teamwork is the dream work, guys. That's what you want to remind yourself on Friday. And then the moon's going to shift into Pisces. And that's going to happen late on Friday evening on the 3rd. So, that's going to bring more sensitivity. That's going to bring also possibly some surprises because the moon is going to square Uranus. And whenever the moon goes through Pisces, we're looking at both Neptune, which is retrograde in Aries, and we're also looking at Jupiter, which is still slightly kind of locked in this square with Mercury. So maybe we're just feeling like it's been information overload all week. Now it's like, all right, we need time for rest. And with the moon square Uranus, there could be a sense of needing more, downtime, and we need to be a little bit more introspective. But something unpredictable happens, an unexpected conversation, an unexpected invitation, or an email or a phone call that we didn't see coming. So emotional disturbances can be happening on Friday night. I would say do your best early Friday morning to express ideas freely, communicate and connect, address wounds, deal with it head on, but try to do it compassionately. And as we get into Friday evening, we have to kind of adapt as the moon goes into Pisces. We want to use that energy for something that's going to be promoting rest or something that's creative so we can kind of unwind. So think like music, art, something that can kind of soothe some of like the tension that's coming up with the Uranus square. And then as we get into Saturday, this will be October the 4th. Moon is still moving through Pisces, but we are also seeing Venus conjunct the South Node. So just fair warning, the 3rd, which is Friday, Saturday the 4th, we're feeling that Venus South Node conjunction. And I think that's very significant. I think it's significant because things happened when Mars was on the South Node. Things happened also when the Sun was on the South Node, and it represents that loss or kind of needing to give something up. Having Mercury there too. I mean, it's been a lot of just, information coming up from the past and things that haven't been working or things that weren't healthy. So I do anticipate we're going to see something going on either Saturday the 4th or Sunday the 5th with some of the lunar aspects. Now, what's positive about Saturday is that first thing in the morning, even though the moon's going through Pisces, and I do think this is going to be kind of like a lazy weekend. Some of us might feel like we're falling off the wagon with the moon in Pisces, where we weren't reaching for the wine or we weren't reaching for the sugar, or maybe we weren't binging Netflix. Now we could potentially fall into some of those patterns again, not only because the moon, North Node, and Saturn are there where we isolate, self-undo, what have you, but also Venus is on the South Node. And so we have to be super aware of like, what are we reaching for? What are we doing? Because we're just trying to kind of just like zone out, and it's going to be different for everybody. Having planets on the nodes do represent dealing with the past and kind of the future. So I kind of see Saturday and Sunday as a period that's like, okay, we're standing at a crossroads. Do we want to keep doing things the way that we've done it? That maybe we're seeking unfulfilling relationships, or we're eating the sugar, or maybe we're having the bad habits. Or do we want to replace that with a better habit? And I think with like the moon in Pisces and the trine to Mars is like detoxing, purging, cleansing, purification, emotional healing, becoming aware of these emotions when they come up. So we're not just reaching for something to kind of get our fix. We're actually really getting to the core of what we need to heal. So moon trine Mars in Scorpio is very sensual. It's very intuitive. It's very passionate. And we're also going to see that this will be the day that the moon inconjuncts or quincunxes the sun in Libra. So it's kind of like a disjointed day, especially Saturday late morning into the afternoon. This is the day that we're going to also see Venus hit that South Node at 18 degrees. And 18 degrees, it is a Virgo degree. It is a degree that deals with, I think, having issues in relationships, problems with health, challenges with digestion. How many people have had like tummy issues since the solar eclipse? I've heard that from a lot of people. I've had all kinds of weird digestional stuff going on, and I kind of chalked it up to being like, well, there's still some stuff that I'm doing that I shouldn't be doing. Pay attention to your digestion. Venus in the South Node means the things that you're usually reaching for that feels good or is an indulgence, it's actually time to like let that go. And what's funny is Mercury is the ruler of this Venus transit, and Mercury has been in opposition to Chiron. I've seen it with clients. I've also seen it in my own life where it's like partners are going like, why are you eating that? Like you don't usually eat that. Or you like, that that's going to give you a migraine, and I'm like, just leave me alone. But I know because I'm getting that feedback, I'm getting that constructive criticism from that Libra kind of energy that's just like, hey, love you, like don't want to see you like this, like why are you doing this to yourself type of stuff, right? And so we're going to see that this week. And we have the opportunity to go, ooh, yeah, okay, I'm catching it now. 18 degrees is also going to be about relational things with people at work. So you might feel like, you know what, you're getting those emails from clients, you're getting those responses from coworkers, and you're like, it's Saturday, I don't want to deal with this. Like, this doesn't feel good. And it's also like not in balance with the work dynamic that we should have. So kind of tricky having Venus on the South Node. Obviously, this is going to be also mirroring some of the themes of the most recent solar eclipse that we had in Virgo. So now we might really be able to kind of give up those old relationship habits, let that stuff go, clear it out. And the moon is going to continue to keep going through Pisces. Now, what's going to happen is it's going to trine Mars kind of late morning, and then it's going to be heading towards a conjunction with the North Node in the evening. So it's interesting, like Friday and Saturday, Venus on the South Node, North Node conjunct the moon in Pisces is like I said, could be a lazy weekend, but it doesn't have to be lazy staying in bed, Netflixing, drinking, snacking. It could be, I'm just going to take it easy this weekend. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to do some meditation. Maybe I'm going to be doing something artistic. I'm going to be cooking, playing some music. All of this is feeding off of the Jupiter in Cancer energy, okay? And we've got mutual reception between Jupiter in a lunar sign and also the moon in a Jupiterian sign, and then they're going to come into a trine on Sunday. Make healthy decisions this weekend, all around, emotionally, get things in order, feel like you're kind of flowing through, your day. If emotions come up, or if you need rest, or if you have the opportunity to listen to what your emotions or your body is trying to tell you, you can intuitively navigate this stuff and you can let things go. Overnight on the 4th, which will be Saturday, coming into what will be Sunday, pay attention to your dreams, okay? Because Venus is going to start opposing the moon. The moon's going to start coming into conjunction with the North Node. And this is like, cool, we shook stuff out, or we let that relationship go. And now we might get some signs, some symbols, some omens, some dreams that are kind of coming through, better clarity, right? Also feeling maybe like we're finally releasing something and it's time to let that go. Very interested to see late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, having planets on the North and the South Node. Trines to Jupiter is saying it's time. And, Pisces could literally be what's been residing in our subconscious for a while, like living rent free. It could be the closets we need to clear out. It could be the rearrangement of our bedroom. I've loved having planets in Pisces, like the North Node, Saturn, and the moon, making some of these aspects to Jupiter, because, navigating home changes, rearranging furniture, organizing things, like it comes really natural. And also we can find that, it could be really beneficial for just moving some things around, or kind of creating more of like a Zen space in our home, or like feng shuiing, or like making sure that things flow better. I've heard a lot of people doing that, or like doing that in their bedrooms and stuff. So yes, if that's stuff you're doing, keep up the good work. And then the moon will continue to go through Pisces into the evening. So I vote that this is a quiet, productive, reflective weekend, because if it's not, we're going to see people crashing out with Venus on the South Node. We're going to see relational issues. We're going to see bad habits. We're going to see people acting crazy. And you're going to see some of the negative effects of like not giving up the bad habits. So just trust me, you will see some people go through that this weekend. Saturday is intuitive and it's passionate. I think that there's a deep emotional drive, and we're making some relational tweaks still. Watch for karmic release when it comes to love or service. That feels very significant. And this is compassionate with the moon in Pisces, but we're purging stuff, and it's ideal for really making time to do some inner work. I think to kind of get through Saturday, I would say dive into something that you're passionate about, create a really comfortable, kind of cozy atmosphere. This can also be a wonderful time for healing, releasing old ties gently. And we want to avoid people pleasing and focus on self-worth through acts of service. And like, I love when the North Node's in Pisces with the moon, like doing bath rituals, going to a spa, soaking, taking a bath, being by water, and recognizing and realizing that, sometimes self-care is not necessarily about all of the extra bells and whistles. Like Venus could be, the fine food, the expensive items, the things that taste good, that smell good, stuff that's expensive. But we're actually going to realize that we can declutter and have less, and really it's going to be more emotionally enriching and kind of like nurturing. So you don't really need a lot of that stuff on Saturday. All right, so that's going to take us into Sunday, which will be the 5th. And then on Sunday morning, the moon is conjunct the North Node. So if you're up early on Sunday, I want you to pay attention to what's happening. The moon is conjunct the North Node, so we're instinctually kind of tuning in, tapping in. Maybe we're doing some meditation. Maybe we're reflecting on our dreams that we had the night before, and then it's going to oppose Venus. And maybe we're going to wake up. Some people are going to wake up hungover on Sunday, and they're going to be like, I can't do this anymore. I can't party like this anymore. Venus South Node. And now the moon's at a 19, which is a Libra degree. Venus is at a 19, which is a Libra degree. And we've got planets on the North and the South Node. My God. How many people are going to get into it this weekend because they've had too much to drink and, or they're just kind of running themselves, ragged with, self-isolation or too much work or, kind of just wigging out a little bit, and partners or other people are going to be giving them their feedback and they're like, what are you doing? Or like, I can't stay around and continue to watch you do this because it's going to be impacting the way that we relate to each other. You're going to see that. And I think the dialogue is going to be incredibly important. I think a lot of people are going to need to hear that. I think a lot of people are going to, find a difficult time sharing that. I also think that it is possible that we're going to see some more job change stuff happening. While Venus is on the South Node, I think it's going to be also possibly creating some friction in relationships where it's like, and I've heard it all month long. It's like, well, I've been at my job for 20 years and I've always been the breadwinner and I have a spouse that stays at home and like now I don't have a job and like we're having conversations we've never had before and it's impacting, where we're living or how we're paying our bills. And like now we're seeing tension that we don't generally have and we're trying to figure out what's next and, who's going to be kind of, taking the reins. So a lot of balancing stuff is going to kind of go on this week. I would just say that on Sunday, with that Pisces North Node moon conjunction with the opposition to Venus in Virgo, we are going to be seeing some big emotions and big feelings that are coming up. And as the moon continues to go through Pisces in the morning, and maybe we recognize or realize, okay, what we have to release or let go of, then the moon is going to start coming into conjunction with Saturn in the late PM hours in the evening. And it's going to quincunx Mercury. So we probably feel like by the end of the weekend, it's like, okay, I've come to terms with what I need to change. And like, how do I have this conversation with somebody? I've thought about it all weekend and like, this has to end. How do we have that conversation? Positive is that what you'll see throughout Sunday is that the moon will be trining Jupiter. So you'll know intuitively what needs to be changed or what needs to shift or how you need to rearrange your home or how you talk to your family, or maybe your emotions are telling you, hey, it's time to make a change. And then the moon will conjunct Saturn late in the evening. And then it will go into Aries overnight and conjunct Neptune. So you guys are going to deal with the Aries moon until Monday the 8th. So, this weekend is just so quiet. It's so reflective. And there's a lot of answers that we're going to get by kind of turning within. And for some of us, it doesn't mean you have to be chanting or meditating. It could mean that you're like, I just need an extra day of sleep. And when I catch up on my sleep and then I feel better, I'm going to have a better idea of just how I'm going to tackle some of the stuff that's kind of going on. So the daily vibe, I think on Sunday feels very spiritual. It's destined with the moon North Node connection. It's expansive with trines to Jupiter and Cancer and that mutual reception between the moon and Jupiter. And obviously, there are some karmic nods here to growth and setting boundaries. Obviously, the oppositions that we see very early Sunday morning are highlighting balance and values. And then as we get into the PM hours, structure with the moon-Saturn connection is kind of tempering our dreams, mystical yet grounded. And I think it's going to be leading to inspired action that we will be taking on Monday with that moon that's going to be in Aries on the 8th. So on Sunday, align your purpose in the morning, come to terms with what you intuitively feel like you're ready to part ways with or what you're ready to release or let go. Embrace your intuition. It's going to be very strong on Saturday and Sunday. So if you want to meditate, you want to focus on your dreams, channel that into that internal knowing and also emotional healing so you can really jump into action on Monday the 8th. Okay? All right, well, I want to talk to you guys about where this square is taking place between Mercury and Jupiter this week. As you guys know, I'm a Western astrologer. That's the kind of astrology that I like to practice. And I'm going to be showing you guys the square that'll be happening from the perspective of the rising signs. So I recommend to make the most of my predictions. You're going to want to listen to your rising sign horoscope first, and then you're going to listen to your sun sign, and then you're going to listen to your moon sign. But definitely listen to your rising sign, as it's going to show you where the tension between communication and growth is happening, and which houses it's going to be taking place in. And if you have anything, once again, 20 to, I would say, 24 degrees of the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, you guys are really feeling some of the pressure this week, as well as my Gemini, Virgo, and Sag risings, as Mercury and Jupiter rule one of your guys' charts, okay? All right, so let's start first with my Aries and my Aries risings. You guys are seeing Mercury, the communicator, moving through your 7th house, which is going to be dealing with, obviously, relationships, partnerships, contracts, clients, anything where you're having to communicate and connect with people. And Mercury could represent emails, phone calls, text messages, traveling, moving. It can also be connected to work and your health and your habits. So somebody in a 7th house fashion, whether it's a therapist, if it's me as your astrologer, if it's your partner, is having conversations with you about Jupiter in the 4th house things. So they're talking to you about home and family dynamics. They're talking to you about traveling. They're talking to you about moving. And obviously it's kind of like ricocheting all over the place, especially if you have like later degrees, Aries placements like that, 20 to 25, 26 degrees, because Chiron is in your sign. Okay. So you're really going to be feeling the effects of like the Capricorn moon earlier in the week, and where you're just having to, I think, take more action, more responsibility. So in a nutshell, the themes here are going to be about emotional security with Jupiter in your 4th house versus relational harmony. And you will probably see some family debates or some home or partner tensions that can come up, or with relatives, or with, even roommates can happen. And I would say the effects are going to be about maybe feeling a little overly optimistic about plans, and those plans can be straining close ties, and that tension can lead to communication breakthroughs. So I do think there's going to be some revelations, in your domestic life or your marriages or relationships this week, potential moves or negotiations for moving or travel. And I would say do your best to try to ground your conversations with facts, and know that this is a time that's about family pattern release. And some of you guys might really benefit, I think, because Jupiter rules your 12th house, on meditating on old ways of doing things and what you're willing to let go, right? And then also, I think like that Capricorn moon going through the 10th house is just about showing up and being like, okay, what do I need to take responsibility for? So it might kind of feel like it's a bit of a chaotic week with some of the squares, but really try to be focusing on kind of like working together as a team in some way, shape, or form. Even if it's not a romantic relationship, if it's a business partnership or a therapist that's helping you work through family patterns, that could definitely come up for some of my Aries risings. Good luck, Aries. All right, we've got Taurus and Taurus rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Mercury going through Libra in your 6th house, squaring Jupiter and Cancer in your 3rd. All right, Taurus. Well, Jupiter is expanding your 3rd house. So this is about how you're communicating. This is about how you're writing. This is about how you're traveling, what you're learning, relationships with siblings, also with neighbors. And it's being challenged by, work, schedule, your patterns, your health. And Mercury is tied to money and resources. It's also going to be tied to children and anything kind of connected with creative projects. I could see this for some Taurus and Taurus risings, where it's like creative deadlines, how you're communicating with people at work, what you're making time for. Are you overscheduling yourself with, things you're writing, stuff you're learning, travel opportunities as well. So it's really going to be this theme of your daily routines versus expansive ideas and communication. And for a lot of Taurus risings, it can feel like mental overload in learning or in service or in work this particular week. Now, what you want to watch for is scattered thoughts that can disrupt your habits, and stuff that's going to be amplifying health or job beliefs. I predict for many of you guys that there's going to be big ideas that are coming up in education or short trips, potential workplace debates that can definitely yield growth. And I would be trying to prioritize tasks and avoid overcommitting. Use lists and practice mindfulness to kind of balance the details of what you're trying to get done, and try to communicate diplomatically at work so that way you can kind of get everything covered. There is a change or a transformation of your mindset this week because Jupiter is tied to your 8th house, and also some changes in group dynamics, and you can be bringing in the necessary help or the better organization or scheduling, so you can meet some of your goals. Good luck, Taurus. Gemini and Gemini rising. What's up, guys? You guys are going to experience Mercury in Libra in your 5th house, squaring Jupiter in Cancer in your 2nd. Obviously, you're ruled by Mercury. It rules both you personally as well as home and family dynamics. And Mercury is moving through a fellow sister air sign, so that's good for you in some regard. Your mind is on creativity, playtime, children, having fun, hobbies, self-expression, dating. And it's going to square Jupiter, which is your 7th house ruler and your 10th house ruler. In many ways, this is like good problems to have. I think that some of you guys might find that, the themes are going to be about what you have, right, resource-wise, or what you have in terms of your expenses, or maybe, what you're really valuing when it comes to relationships and how you're willing to spend a little bit more on the things that you love, the hobbies you love, romantic partners, and kind of children. And it is about financial optimism and that kind of meeting playful risks. So you might feel like you're more willing to spend money or take risks with things this week. Watch for exaggerated spending or self-worth talks. There can be some creative tension that can be coming up that can spark innovation. I feel like this can also be about you getting a lot of feedback from other people, and people like what you have to say, or people like what you're creating, or you can have a partner or a business partner who's saying, I believe in you. And you're like, okay, I'm going to go and create this thing. So I do think it's going to promote fun. I would just say, budget wisely. Watch for luck and income ideas. And, there can be some romantic debates. There can be some artistic breakthroughs. Budget wisely and express affections clearly. And channel this energy into hobbies for emotional release this week. Good luck, Gemini. Definitely one of the better horoscopes, I would have to say. All right, Cancer and Cancer rising. Cancer, pay attention as you are a cardinal sign, so you're going to really feel the effects of this, especially anything 20 to about 23, 24 degrees Cancer. But it's going to square Jupiter, obviously, in your sign. So I think all Cancers are going to feel that growing pain. Now, what I'm referencing is Mercury going through Libra in your 4th house of home and family, squaring Jupiter in your 1st. Okay, so this is an opening square, which basically means that you're getting checked in some way. All right, and Mercury deals with, communication, writing, short trips, moving, siblings, neighbors, and it's going to be squaring Jupiter in your 1st house. So it's going to be, we're organization, balancing things, cleaning things, trying to get things in order on the home and family front is really going to feel like information overload, or that you're going to have to work extra hard to maintain your schedule or your health this week. Now, this is really about personal growth with Jupiter in your 1st house, getting challenged by what's getting organized or what's changing, or like family group dynamics. And there can be emotional expansion that's kind of taking place that's challenging your diplomacy with family or with roommates. So there can be a sense of you going, okay, I am working really hard to keep everything organized, or I'm trying really hard to eat well or be healthy. And, there's just a lot of family things that are going on, and you're showing up and there's a bunch of family parties and there's food, and maybe it's interfering with, your new habits or your lifestyle. And you're trying to find ways to kind of diplomatically be involved, but also be I can only be here for so long because I'm working, or I can't really partake in some of the stuff that's going on. Or you're really being challenged, I think, to just stay on top of things and be extra organized throughout this next week. So, the effects might mean that you might notice you're a little bit overly confident and you could be really emotional, and that could strain your home or family life. And there could be like inner conflicts that can kind of come up that lead to maturity. I do predict that there can be some identity shifts via family insights and conversations you have with family. Potential relocations or emotional healing can come up for you this week as well. I would say if I were Cancer rising, I'd be reflecting on, roots and communication boundaries, and I would be nurturing myself and doing everything I can do to stay healthy, stay active, stay on top of things, and recognize that this gives you an opportunity to now start integrating some of these lifestyle changes or kind of work changes into your family and your kind of like relationship life. I suspect when the moon goes through Capricorn and it opposes Jupiter in your sign and it squares, it's going to be about how you're working with another person to handle or navigate a family dynamic situation. So watch from that coming from like other people. Okay. Good luck, Cancer. Definitely let me know how this affects you guys. I'm very curious as Jupiter is in your sign. For Leo and Leo rising, you guys are going to be experiencing Mercury going through the sign of Libra. It'll be transiting your natal 3rd house, and it'll be coming into a square with Jupiter and Cancer in your natal 12th. While Leo, obviously, you've already, kind of gone through the solar eclipse. You've gone through some of those changes, and now it's kind of prompting you to really focus on how you're communicating, what you're learning. Also, traveling or relocation themes can kind of come up. Mercury deals with your money, your resources, and your values. It's also directly tied to your goals and your friendships, and it's going to be squaring Jupiter in the 12th house, which is kind of hidden and subconscious, and Jupiter deals with the 8th house of joint assets. So we put it all together, and the themes that you're going to be experiencing as Leo rising is, I think, hidden emotions with Jupiter and Cancer in your 12th house that are coming up as a result of, communication and daily exchanges. So you might recognize that you're a lot more sensitive than you were aware of when you're talking about your relationships or when you're talking to a partner, or maybe, you do some traveling that makes you aware of some things that you need to heal. Journaling can be extra helpful this week, and kind of recognizing or realizing that there's some stuff that needs to be tended to subconsciously. And there can also be a sense of having like intuitive expansion that's kind of coming up, and you're just trying to figure out how to find the words to express that. It's possible that philosophical dreams can kind of clash with how you're communicating with other people, so whether it's your partner, siblings, or neighbors. And watch for subconscious patterns that begin to surface this week. I do think that what's positive is that there can be spiritual insights that can come through movement. So a short distance trip can be really helpful, but also get walking, right? Get on a bike, just get moving, listen to something that's going to be inspirational, go on walks and have chats with a partner. You might be able to kind of uncover and talk about some stuff that you're kind of dealing with emotionally. And this is a good time to release old fears through having more intimate conversations with people. Meditation will be really helpful this week. It will help strengthen your intuition. Watch for gossip, and journal if you're needing extra clarity. And maybe even some dream interpretation can help you guys during this transit as well. Good luck. For my Virgos and Virgo risings, you guys are going to be experiencing Mercury in Libra in your natal 2nd house coming into a square with Jupiter in Cancer in your natal 11th. Being that you're ruled by Mercury transits are really important. And so obviously this is about you kind of getting checked with Jupiter in the 11th house. Mercury rules you as well as your career, your responsibility, and your personal status, while Jupiter rules your relationships and things like the past or your home and family. So Jupiter is expanding your goals, your social groups, your friends, and with Mercury squaring that, it makes me feel like there is going to be themes connecting to community expansion, what your friends are, wanting from you, what group dynamics are kind of playing out at work, what your joint goals are, in a relationship with another person. And it is challenging your values, your money, your self-esteem, your self-worth. And this is where social optimism is really testing your resources. So there could be an abundance of social events, parties, gatherings, things coming up. And it's how you feel about going to some of these things. It's about whether or not you feel like you have the funds to participate in some of these things. It could also bring up group debates that, could be positive if you're looking to kind of connect with like-minded individuals. It's also really great for networking, and it can actually boost your income through networking opportunities. But we can see that there can be some pressure that can be coming up in certain relationships or friendships that can challenge your security. Now, I do think that you guys will have some good networking luck, but watch for financial overreach, and you need to kind of refine your goals a little bit this week. This is also about really, I think, like vetting some of your alliances and balance giving and receiving. This is the week that you want to set budgets and you really want to affirm abundance. And abundance isn't just going to be money. It's going to be relationships. It's going to be healthy self-esteem. It's going to be also having a good, solid, group of friends around you that can kind of support you and help you feel, wanted and help you feel valued. I also would just kind of keep an eye on, once Mercury starts to kind of come into the later degrees of Libra and it starts opposing Chiron, there's definitely going to be some back and forth that you might be having with people over budgeting or financial things, or even with a partner. So a lot of it can be how much money is being spent on going out, socializing, and up and coming events, and how you're actually budgeting for that, right? And good luck with the Venus South Node transit this week. I know you guys are dealing with that as well, which can be feeling like you have to give something up, or you're having to release something, or there is something that you have to let go. And that might be part of it, that, you're willing to kind of part with old versions of yourself or even resources if it means that you're going to have some kind of support from friends. Good luck. For my Libras and Libra risings, you guys are going to be experiencing Mercury in your sign coming into a square with Jupiter in Cancer in the 10th. So Libra, this is very personal for you, especially if you've got anything around that 21, 22, 23 degrees, Libra, Sun, Moon, or Rising. Mercury moving through your first house deals a lot with how you think, what you have to say, your health, your routines, what you do first thing in the morning. And it's also connecting to travel as well as kind of like your subconscious. So whether you're making plans to travel, whether you're, studying, whether this is going to be philosophical shifts, or you're kind of working through some like subconscious fears. As Mercury comes into a square with Jupiter in your 10th house of career, you're going to see that the theme is going to be about professional growth versus personal harmony. And obviously it's an opening square. So I think a lot of Libra risings are going to be feeling like they're very ambitious to communicate, connect, and also present themselves in some specific way, or, travel or connect with people. And Jupiter rules your third house of short distance travel, writing, speaking, communicating. And it can be feeling like you're just kind of burnt out, or there's just an over focus, I think, on how you're communicating with people at work. Now, this is going to be, obviously, like I said, bringing up possibly some public debates that can kind of strain your identity. And there can be some expansive goals that are coming up, and it's really pushing your visibility. I would say, watch for career opportunities. There can be some relational twists, and obviously, recognition will come because of something that you say. So you might be speaking out at work, or you might, say something that's a little kind of like, oh, where did that come from? And it's sparking some debate on, like a professional or like a public stage. And Mercury is also going to oppose Chiron, so you could say some things that could put some people off, and whether that's like a client, or that could be a partner, or you're just overdoing it when it comes to working, and it can create a little bit of a divide between you and a close ally or a partnership. So watch for that, and try to negotiate if you can assertively. Obviously, Mercury in the first. Ground your ambitions, and you just want to visualize success. I think for a lot of Libras, it's going to be talking less, visualizing more. And like, you're definitely one of the signs that I would say don't overpromise, because you might kind of like produce. So if you're promising, I'm going to write this contract, I'm going to send this email, I'm going to have this meeting, I'm going to launch this thing, I would be like, now's not the week to make those big kind of announcements, because there can be a sense of you trying to do too many things at one time, right? Good luck, Libra. Let me know what happens. We've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. You guys are going to experience Mercury in Libra moving through your natal 12th house. coming into a square with Jupiter in Cancer in your natal ninth. While the 12th house deals with what's behind the scenes, your dreams, your intuition, your subconscious, Cancer and the ninth house is kind of dealing with obviously your beliefs, education, travel. So Mercury is directly tied to change and transformation of the mind or joint assets, as well as goals that maybe you have with another person or your social connections. And that square means that there's definitely going to be some like philosophical or cultural or kind of like religious like shifts that can kind of happen this week. The 12th house is subconscious, and it can also be a house of endings. So there's like one phase that's coming to an end for you, either subconsciously or when it comes to like relationships, Libra. So I do think that the themes are going to be philosophical expansion, inner release, faith journeys, kind of meeting hidden fears. This can be a time where you're feeling like you're clearing out old beliefs about relationships or about the world. It can also be a time that, there is traveling going on in a foreign land, or they're studying something that can be kind of like philosophical or even mystical. I would just say there can be a sense of being overly optimistic about adventures and traveling, okay? Like trying to cram too much into a trip or trying to plan something very suddenly. And that can clash with really your need for solitude right now. And this is about spiritual tensions that can come up, but it's fostering some kind of insight. Now, I predict that travel or study revelations can happen. There can be karmic closures taking place this week for you. And I would encourage my Scorpio and Scorpio risings to explore intuitively, just avoid escapism, meditate for subconscious healing, and really look for opportunities to really reevaluate your goals. And if you're trying to do any traveling, I would say make it more about rest and relaxation, not running around and going and kind of like seeing the sights, right? Good luck, Scorpio. For my Sag and Sag risings, you guys are going to experience Mercury going through the sign of Libra in your natal 11th house, coming into a square with Jupiter in Cancer in your 8th house. Now, obviously, squares to Jupiter need to be watched because it is going to represent changes that you are personally kind of going through. Where Libra and the 11th house is parties, friends, networks, social kind of obligations. Mercury is going to be tied to your career as well as your relationship. And Jupiter is kind of hidden in the 8th house. You can't really see it. So it does mean that there may be people who are calling for you to kind of come out of hiding, right? Or they're asking you to participate in some kind of group dynamic. So for many of you guys, it's going to represent the themes of, okay, deep bonds, versus kind of like social hopes, emotional investments, meeting community ideals, going through a process of change and transformation and like letting other people kind of help you through that process or like talking to you about what you're kind of going through. And I do think that there can be definitely some transformative talks that can really amplify your friendships this week. It is possible that there can be themes revolving around inheritance, debt, or joint assets that you're kind of dealing with. And I do think a lot of Sag risings are going to experience some joint financial luck this week with some of the squares. But group tensions, whether that's at work or in a social setting, can come up. And there can also be an opportunity for profound connections. Mercury, after all, deals with relationships. So it's like, this is another sign that would do really well with networking this week or any kind of group dynamics, group therapy, group healing sessions, just socializing to connect with people and kind of pull you out of your funk. I know a lot of Sag and Sag risings have been in a funk, but you're going to have people calling, asking you if you want to participate. And I would say go. Because if you can connect with some of these people, even though it feels a little tense, and you communicate your vulnerabilities, you're going to have people who are going to show up and they're going to help support you. And it can also be wonderful for networking in the midst of some of the air trines. Okay. Sag, let me know how you're dealing with this. Do you just have too much on the agenda, socially, and you're like, I don't know if I'm ready to come out and play. But that's kind of like the feeling that I'm getting with your guys' transits. Good luck. And we've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Mercury going through the sign of Libra in your natal 10th house of career, coming into a square with Jupiter in Cancer in your 7th house of relationships. Obviously, if you are a Capricorn, sun, moon, or rising, especially like 20, 25 degrees-ish, you're going to be feeling the effects of it. Pay attention when the moon goes through Capricorn at the beginning of the week. Because as the moon goes through your sign, it's going to square Chiron, it's going to oppose Jupiter, it's going to start to come into a square with Mercury, and it's going to be about you going, okay, moon in Capricorn, what are my emotions telling me? Who do I need to be working with? Where is partnership or relationship going to help me make changes on the home front and also professionally? So a lot of it's listening to your gut. Capricorn, basically having squares between Mercury and your 10th is going to be bringing up your either communication, your philosophy, your beliefs about relationships in your career, coming into a bit of a clash with communication with clients, relationships, or family. Okay, so when we look at that, it's going to bring up a theme of like relational security versus, professional harmony. And emotional ties may challenge your ambitions this week. I think it's possible some of you guys might find that there's like partner debates that are kind of expanding your reputation. Maybe balancing work-life tension is going to be a bit of a challenge, I think, in the next couple of days. And what I would be focusing on is business alliances, right? Or, partnership alliances, what your instincts are telling you about your relationships or your marriage, or where there could be career growth that can actually happen as a result of some of your growth in relationships, who you're working with, who you're partnering with. I would be listening to other people when you can. Try to be a team player and set goals together. I would be really trying to affirm mutual support, whether that's professionally or romantically. And communication is king because that's what Jupiter rules. Now, this could also be bringing up how you're communicating, moving, or how you're talking to a partner or a relative or a family member about some, kind of long-term plans that you're going to be making professionally. But when you have the 10th and the 7th house kind of squaring each other and kind of like highlighted, things that are happening are going to become very public, and whether that's in your professional kind of realm or in your relationship realm. So watch for that. And also look to Saturn, I think, with some of the sextiles between the moon and Capricorn in your chart ruler, to help you kind of communicate and learn when to say something and learn when to listen, right? Good luck, Capricorn. Certainly colorful for all my cardinal signs this week. All right, we've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Mercury going through the sign of Libra, another sister air sign. So it's a little friendlier for you. It will be moving through your 9th house of travel, higher mind, your belief system, education. And it will be squaring off with Jupiter in Cancer in your 6th house of work, health, and habits. So you're one of the signs that's going to have to work a little bit harder this week to kind of balance your schedule with your kind of bigger ideas or your travel plans or your educational plans. Jupiter obviously is going to deal with money and expenses. It's also going to deal with your goals and your friendships. So for my Aquarius and Aquarius risings, you're going to feel a little torn between what work do I have to get done? What's my daily service? What's going on at the office versus where do I want to travel, right? Or what do I have planned? Or when am I going to school? And this is where routines are getting challenged a little bit because you're feeling a little bit more adventurous. So there's much more of a tendency to want to go and travel or plan things with partners. I think the effects that you'll see is that there could be health or job optimism that's kind of coming up, but it's also clashing with, learning or scattered duties, and some of this kind of recalibrating or balancing your schedule where you can have work and play can actually lead to wisdom if you're paying attention. Now, I do think that I would watch for workplace travels or studies, and I think you're going to have some breakthroughs in your habits or in your scheduling this week. I would say as an Aquarius, I'd be prioritizing wellness and I would be studying practically. I would be really managing my schedule and integrating routines so you can have time to do all of the things that you want to do. I know some Aquarius risings that are going to be traveling a lot this next month. I know others that are trying to figure out how to balance work with going back to school. I'm seeing others that are really trying to focus on budgeting so that way they can afford school or they can afford trips. So you might see, bits and pieces of some of these predictions, but manage your schedule wisely this week. Don't have too many irons in the fire. Okay. Good luck, Aquarius. And finally, we have Pisces and Pisces risings. You guys will be experiencing Mercury going through Libra in your natal 8th house of joint finances, intimacy, and psychological themes. And it will be coming into a square with Jupiter in Cancer in your natal 5th house. Now, this does affect Pisces risings too, to be fair. Jupiter is one of your rulers traditionally, so you will feel this. And Mercury rules relationships, and it rules home and family. And Jupiter obviously rules you, but it's also directly connected to, Sagittarius things, so career and your kind of professional outlook as well. Now, squares from the 8th to the 5th house are going to be kind of showing you where the themes are going to be about. Okay, Jupiter in your 5th, joyful expression, children, romance, creativity. Also deep bonds, intimacy and vulnerability. And this is about playful expressions that are kind of meeting shared vulnerabilities. So there can be like romantic debates that are amplifying your passion. You can find that you're more willing to take creative risks to transform your close relationships. I do think for some Pisces and Pisces risings, we could see some love affairs going on this week. And we can also see a lot of like depth to your artistic or creative process. Joint expenses revolving around children can also be kind of happening as well. Fertile ideas with Jupiter in your 5th house and lots of emotional intensity and vulnerability with other people, especially when it comes to shared finances or taxes, inheritance, that type of stuff, budgeting between you and a partner. And then this is going to be about expressing yourself authentically and maybe navigating intimacy in a gentle way and maybe channeling with Jupiter in your 5th house a lot of this into, art or, like intimate kind of like date nights so you can get a little bit closer to somebody that you love. I like that for Pisces. I think that's good. I think some of you guys are also willing to take creative risks or you're willing to take financial risks and you're kind of talking about, okay, what is it that we have to do? Very important as, Mercury is going to start to oppose Chiron. So it's going to be very much financial. So I could see for a lot of you guys, it's about negotiating joint expenses or, child support, or maybe you're talking about budgeting relating to children or creative projects. So let me know how that manifests for you guys. All right, guys. Well, that is the week I guess, like in a nutshell. So hopefully that was like helpful in kind of navigating some of the more intense communication aspects. Obviously, astrology is a tool. We want to use it for empowerment. So we want to use these insights, I think, to really navigate these energies and do so with like grace and also with intention. If any of this resonated with you guys, come back, leave me comments, let me know how it's playing out throughout this next week. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and drop me a comment and share your rising sign and maybe how you're experiencing some of these like intense communication transits and what kind of, turned up for you in terms of my predictions. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, for liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. Any interaction with the channel really helps the channel grow. I'm going to be back here on Tuesday and Thursday, so I will catch you guys then. And I hope you guys enjoy your week. Until next time, take care.